The best piece, I think it would be from Robert, actually, the branch manager. He told me to seek embarrassment. I think that's really important for juniors, like younger engineers, right? Because it's a bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's that we are the ones who are holding ourselves back the most.
Welcome back to the workshop presented by Adelaide and Brian. On today's episode, I'm joined by engineering design interns and co-op students Brian Castillo from BCIT and Adelaide Jang from UBC. On this episode, we dive into their lives as students transitioning to the working world, common challenges that they have faced, and what they look forward to most about their future within the field. It was awesome to hear Brian and Adelaide share their early impressions about the industry of land development, and I hope you all enjoy.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the workshop presented by Adelaide and Brian. I'll be your host, Julian Cesario. With Adelaide and Brian growing and expanding not only nationally across the country and workforce-wise, as well in the ever-evolving field of land development, it's very important to develop your in-house talent and set them up for future success. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by two of the co-op students that are currently in the Adelaide and Brian program, Adelaide and Brian. How are you guys both today?
Good.
Good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm great. This is the first time I could say that I'm going to be sitting down with people with less than 1 year experience. Congratulations to both of you. So have you guys done something like this before?
Like this co-op?
No, just have you done like a podcast or something like this before?
Oh, no, never done a podcast before.
No,
so
go yourself.
New experience.
Are you guys both into or big into social media, like that sort of thing? I know I guess I grew up kind of with social media. It was like one of the first things. Like I remember Twitter when I was in grade 8. That was when Twitter first came out, and that was like the first big thing. But now you guys are kind of like I don't know when you guys get all social media and stuff like that. But is it something that is used more frequently now in school and stuff? And
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, for me personally, I don't use anything really beyond Instagram.
Okay.
I know like a lot of people are on TikTok nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah, for me personally, like I think I watch a lot of podcasts just because like during work, like I used to listen to a lot of music.
Okay.
But now I've like listened to like so much music that like I have nothing else to listen to. So now I'm like starting to like hop into like podcasting and stuff like that. So
Okay.
Pretty interesting.
What kind of podcasts do you like to listen to?
You
don't have to say this one. It's all right.
Yeah. Well, like there's like this one like podcast that's called like Suburb Talks. Basically, it's like these people from like LA, and they just like talk about like their life, like growing up in the suburbs and stuff. And I could like really like relate to them. That's why I like.
So it's more so like their life experiences and what they can draw on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's some of that, and there's also what's the other podcast? Dude, when Logan Paul was like big, like I used to
Does he still do a podcast? They still do it now?
No, I still think they do. I used to listen to Impulsive a lot just because like I don't know, nothing better to listen to, and I thought it was like pretty. He had some interesting guests, so I was like, you know what, listen to that. Not anymore. Like I think he's just a complete dud now, but like.
And marketing wise, I think he was one of the smartest. Him and his brother Jake, right? They're one of the. They're two
crazy.
Of this power people, even in today's industry, right? Just in like media, being able to build the kind of events that they do, doing even like the Netflix boxing event that was on.
You watched the fight?
Yeah, of course I watched the fight. Unintentionally, but it was on in the background. But people gathered to watch that, right? Like getting to be able to do something like that, right? Like the power of media and the power of stepping outside of the comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost bet on that fight. I almost lost because I was bet on Tyson.
On Tyson?
Yeah.
Good choice not to. But let's get back to this. Let's get a little bit brief background about yourselves. Where'd you guys grow up? Where'd you guys go to school?
Yeah, for sure. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in Vancouver my whole life. Really fortunate. My parents immigrated here, kind of for the American dream, and they had me and my brother. And then I think naturally in an Asian household, there's a bit of pressure to go into some sort of a profession. Okay. So I just kind of went along with engineering, and now I'm a 5th year UBC student.
Okay. Is your brother as well in engineering too? Or
He
is.
He's also a civil engineer.
Nice. Younger, older?
Older.
Okay, very cool. Yourself?
And then for me, I was born and raised in Coquitlam, which is just a suburb near Vancouver. For high school, I went to Centennial Secondary School, which is also in Coquitlam. After high school, I went to BCIT, which honestly was like a pretty hard program for civil engineering.
Okay.
Like I thought it was pretty tough. I would say that first year was probably my most memorable just because of how much it like sucked. Yeah, no, like it was like
how were the classes like starting at 8, ending at 5 sort of thing? I remember first year.
Yeah, I know for sure. Like
course-wise, pretty.
Well, like in high school, right? You're taking like 4 courses a day, right? Mm-hmm. And you know they're like high school courses. They're not like terrible, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to BCIT and you're taking like 8 intensive like engineering courses,
Yeah.
which is like a huge step in my opinion, right? So like you're kind of like learning as you're going, but you're constantly getting like kicked down just because of like, so the workload is just insane, right?
Yeah, it's bad. Like my first year was during COVID, so everything was completely online.
Yeah.
So like there was no support system. You couldn't see other students struggling with you.
Yeah, that would be brutal. Like
It was brutal.
I
It was
I don't know if I
really
could do
bad.
like online. Like,
So you then, I guess, you started school after COVID, technically.
yeah, so my grade 11 year was like fully COVID, and then transitioning back into grade 12 was when
Also, you started carried over from high school.
yeah, so then that's when we started to like go back into school, but we were like wearing masks and stuff, and then like the last semester of high school, that's when like everything was like kind of lifted, so like everything was like, so I kind of had like that grade 12 like graduation stuff, which was like
Okay.
really, I'm really fortunate to have, because I know like other people didn't have that.
Yeah. And yourself, Adelaide?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a prom or anything like that. Everything was kind of canceled because
Ew.
2020 was when I was supposed to graduate high school. So everything that people like lived up to or like looked forward to in grade
Yeah.
12 was all shut down. And then we started university.
And then you got kicked out again.
Yeah, like no freshmen, like, everyone wants to go to the parties. Everyone wants to like
Yeah.
get into that lifestyle.
Yeah.
I don't know about the frats, but
That's what it
yeah, we didn't get to do anything. So.
So you spoke a little bit about how you got into engineering,
Yeah.
Adelaide. Brian, what was something that pushed you towards this field?
Yeah, so pretty interesting story. I'm gonna go back to high school. So you're supposed to take like this career class
Okay.
in high school, and they give you like this survey with a bunch of these like strongly disagree, strongly agree type of like questions, right? And like I'm filling out this like survey because like I'm just a grade 10 student who doesn't really know what they want to do yet, like still like up in the air. And I finished like the survey, right? And I don't remember the top three, but there was like top three jobs for you, right? So the first job was civil engineer, and I was like, oh, that's super sick. Like I don't know what a civil engineer is, but like it has engineering.
But it sounds-
it has engineering in the name, so like it must be like pretty cool, right? But then the second job was I was a horse tamer. So then I was like, okay, so it's like between civil engineer and horse tamer. So
Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
crazy.
probably go with civil engineer because like I don't know about horse taming, but like I could have been like a prodigy at like
Okay, yeah.
horse taming. Like who knows?
That's
Like
crazy.
maybe in like a different life or something. But yeah, so that wasn't the main reason. That's like one of the reasons why that kind of like got my foot in the door
Okay.
in civil engineering.
Yeah.
And after that, I started like asking my teachers around school like about it, and they all like kind of like pushed me towards that.
They didn't want to go with horse tamer?
No,
They
so
didn't-
so
that
interesting.
wasn't a promising one for them?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think maybe one of the teachers, but like majority of them civil
Okay.
engineering. Yeah,
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's the thing, right? You're in grade 11 and you're
10.
expected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Or sorry, well, typically when you apply for university, you're like, you start preparing, I guess, grade
Yeah,
10,
that's
11 ish. And, it's like, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life.
I feel like that's the hardest part about
Exactly.
like high school right now is like, I know like a lot of people like they go into high school and they're like in their last year and they're like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, I feel like I just got like super lucky because going into like civil engineering, like I didn't know if that's actually what I wanted to do, but I knew if I tried it, I would like have an idea. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not what I want to do, it's like at least I know now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's just like it's like pretty.
It's kind of like putting your fate into something that you don't really, just like so
Exactly.
much uncertainty about,
Yeah,
especially
for sure.
if neither of you had, say, like a parent or somebody that was
Yeah,
also
for,
in the
yeah,
field,
for
right?
sure, exactly.
Yeah. I think also civil is just such a stable field. Like, that's really attractive, right? So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people just place their bets on it. And
Awesome.
then they go into
Yeah,
it.
for
But,
sure.
somewhere along the way, you do start to, like, really enjoy what you do. Like, you find a passion for it.
Yeah, no, I think because we had an intro to civil class, and I feel like just sitting in that class, like after like a week of that class, I was like, you know what, like this seems like pretty interesting. Like I'm pretty happy in like my decision.
Yeah.
So.
And then actually being exposed to it after the fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially like now, like working in industry as well. It's like a lot of the work is like super rewardable too.
And it's kind of funny. I feel like a lot of people don't know what civil engineering
No, exactly.
actually is. Like,
Point, yeah.
I've been dating my boyfriend for like 4 years, and I think recently his mom asked, is like specifically what I do
What
in
you
civil,
do.
and he couldn't even answer her.
So that's going to be my next question, Ashley, right now. So in your own words, what is civil engineering to you?
Do you want to go first?
Do you want to go first?
Civil engineering, in my own words, I think we are in charge of like designing infrastructure that keeps everything going. Like sometimes I walk around the city and I just like everything, like the roads, right, underground, the intersection, the transportation, everything is just civil engineering. It's crazy. And I think that's why the course load is so bad as well, because we're doing fluid mechanics, but we also do structural. So we're also designing buildings.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're doing geotech, right? If you're in more like rural areas.
Yeah, there's so many like different like fields that you can go
crazy.
to, right?
Yeah.
It's like very.
Everything just kind of falls under civil.
Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects that go into it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a lot of people see it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's hard to like, I guess, put it in just like a few sentences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Is there anything on that?
No, I'd probably say like a lot of the same things, but
Like when your friends ask, "What do you do at work?"
yeah. See, that's like it's like a hard like elevator speech to like tell them because I start off with like, okay, so like, do you know what Civil 3D is? And then they're like, no, what is that? Okay, do you know what AutoCAD is?
Yeah.
Never heard of AutoCAD. So then you're going through like this whole like list of like, okay, so like AutoCAD basically is like computer drafting, right? And then so basically from computer drafting, I'm working on Civil 3D, which is like an extension of AutoCAD.
Yeah.
Where you're able to do more like civil related things such as like pipe networks, structures, things like that.
Or it's even like the systems that you're describing that you designed. They don't even know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh yeah, I do the utilities underground. And they're like, pipes
They're like,
underground.
water gets into
Yeah.
my building how? Right?
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's
a
exactly,
little
yeah.
bit. Like, I guess people don't really like think about it until they're asked that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So now let's talk about how you guys are actually here sitting with me today. How did you hear about Applin and the summer program or the internship program or co-op program?
For me personally, because I went to BCIT, we have like an industry night, which is run by CSCE. So basically, a bunch of professionals are invited, and same with faculty and a bunch of the BCIT students from the civil program. And it's just a big social mixer where everyone gets to know each other. And a lot of the time, this is where like the students find some of their co-op opportunities.
Okay.
So going to a lot of these events, like you see Applin's like logo, like pretty like it's pretty big because like they're big sponsors for the industry night. So that's like kind of like the main reason where I've like started to see them. And then also I know that Applin hires a lot of like BCIT students. So when a lot of them come back from co-op, for example, like I'm able to like talk to them, and then they always just have like really good things to say about Applin, and yeah.
What about yourself?
For me, well, I'm in the co-op program at UBC, so that starts in second year, and you kind of flip-flop between going to school and going to work. But for my first placement, I worked at a municipality,
Okay.
and when I was there, I had to review a lot of Applin documents. So I remember looking at the drawings.
Like, who are these guys that keep coming back? What is
exactly.
this?
Like all the technical memos, all the reports. I remember thinking the drawings looked really good. Like, this is intense. Like, I want to do this. This is real design. So there was that, but then also same with Brian. There's a lot of networking events at UBC as well. So I remember going to one of the alumni night events, and I actually met my supervisor and some of the people in the Vancouver branch there, and I thought everyone was really fun. It's
Very
like,
cool.
I want to work with them. Yeah.
No, that's good to hear again. That the feedback that you've not only heard it from people in the industry, but then people from school, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
for
the
sure.
biggest thing that
Yeah.
as long as because you want the industry to succeed in itself. It's not you want just the company to succeed, but if the industry itself is succeeding, then everybody else within it is going to be
Yeah.
doing well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that you guys have mentioned, you guys have been kind of going back and forth between working and school. What kind of impact has being an intern had on your school life? Like, what kind of skills have you been able to bring from the workplace back to school?
Yeah. I feel like Adelaide can talk more about that because this is my first like co-op, so I haven't been back into school since.
see.
So yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about Applin specifically, it's definitely how
Just
to...
being in a workplace, translating back to
Oh, I see.
back to the school, back to school.
I think, well, okay, maybe I just didn't take my internships as seriously as Brian did. For my first few, at least, like it was hard for me to, like, kind of go through the process and like how to problem solve all those types of things. I think because I'm in fourth year, I'm spending a bit more time like looking into my future, you know. So specifically at Applin, I think if you go around the office and you ask anyone, they'd agree that Applin has like a really good mentorship culture. And then with that comes a really good support network. So then when you're interning in these types of environments, there's always like, I wouldn't say a push, more like a push from myself, like a desire for growth, like a constant, like, you know, you got to try this, you got to step out of your comfort zone. So when you're in these types of environments, it kind of reflects into your learning approach. Like when you're at school, how seriously do you want to take like the material that's being presented to you? You kind of like take ownership of your own learning.
Yeah, you kind of see what the actual adult world is like, and then
Exactly.
translate it back to okay. Well, now I was able to see how I don't want to call it real people versus like your own bubble at
Yeah.
school, right? But
Yeah.
it shows you something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So now going the other way, what skills were you able to take from university that have made you guys successful so far in where you work in the workplace?
Yeah, I think personally, like, so technical wise, I would say like all of like the municipal like civil 3D stuff that we were doing at school helped like tremendously, especially at Applin. Like I remember like walking into my office and then working on like some projects on day one, which was like pretty surprising. I thought like it was nice to like start working on things. So I would say the civil 3D aspect has helped a lot. And then also like the constant pressure from like 8 and 9 courses during school. I feel like it's helped me like handle like a lot of the pressure situations here at work. So I don't feel as like I'm able to just handle it better, and like I don't feel like super stressed. I don't feel that stressed when something bad like kind of happens.
Yeah.
So I feel like those are like the two main things for me personally.
So like time management, being able to be like, okay, if I can handle all of this,
Yeah,
then
for
it
sure.
translates to different tasks within the
Yeah,
class.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd actually say something pretty similar regarding the pressure. I think the sheer amount of course load that's in engineering programs, it forces you to like be able to like multitask between different courses, so different projects, right? And that time constraint that comes with consulting. But then here's the difference, like technically wise, and it's funny because Brian and I have had this conversation a lot of times. We realized that like UBC and BCIT, they place very different emphasis on what they want to teach. So BCIT is very like practical, a lot of like software
Yeah.
applications. UBC is more of the theoretical, the mathematical. So I guess it gave me pretty good background.
Yeah.
But like software wise, I didn't even know how to draw a polyline in CAD.
Oh, really?
It was bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had to train me like from ground up.
Which I thought was super surprising because I was like, if I started like that, like I can't draw a line and then I have to work on
Especially
civil, civil 3D every single day, I'd be cooked. Like I'd be be super bad.
Yeah. But then, like, another end of that is because there's such a big amount of coursework, like, there's a lot of people who are really into different organizational systems. Personally, for me, I really like that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I like figuring out the most efficient way to outline all my tasks and all my courses. And I feel like it just comes with the field, but a lot of people in the office actually really like that stuff too. So it makes for a really good conversation.
Yeah.
And What's
Yeah.
the most efficient way to, like, keep everything in order?
So now building off that, that's actually really interesting that you mentioned that, because I know even back home it's like very similar as well between schools.
Yeah.
What kind of changes would you like to see to your classes within university that you think could better prepare students that are moving to the workforce?
Well, right now I'm in my 4th year of studies, so I'm doing my capstone project. So they walk you through the whole process. You have to write your proposal, you have to communicate with the client, do the conceptual. I feel like those types of projects are really good at making students look at documents that they actually have to work within the real like workforce. So like looking at municipal standards, things like that, they don't teach you in school, right? So projects like that, technical writing as well. Like they don't teach you how to write an email, right? So
Oh,
those
yeah,
types
that's
of
true.
courses, and also software. Like I said, UBC doesn't really prioritize that. Yeah.
What about yourself?
Personally, I think the program is like pretty good. Like I
It's like it's perfect.
like
Everyone go to
I
BCIT.
wouldn't say it's perfect, but like I feel like it like prepared me like super well for the industry, and I like felt very confident like walking in. So I don't think I would change necessarily anything.
Is there something that you would add or subtract that you would feel would make the student experience more, like the transition easier?
Transition easier.
Maybe more like a co-op program, because I know you mentioned
Yeah,
that
so, like,
BCIT doesn't have like a official co-op program.
They're actually like having a co-op program, but like the reason why I don't think it's like necessary is because like if we have a co-op program, like then all the students are gonna have to take like a pay cut, and they also have to like pay for that co-op program.
That is true. That is
But
true as
like
well.
BCIT students don't usually like have an issue finding co-ops. Like
Okay.
everyone in my class, like they found jobs, so I don't necessarily think there's like, I feel like the program is honestly pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Well, that's good then that you think that
Yeah.
you're able to translate those skills to the workplace very easily. Now, I want to talk about on your first day when you guys first stepped into work, or like put your shoes back into when you guys first started.
Yeah.
How was that like for you going into the workplace for the very first time versus walking into a class where you can just sit at the back, take out your laptop, and pretend to take notes?
Yeah.
You
want-
start.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I feel like I got it like super easy just because Adelaide was there the whole time. Like she's like a senior, she's like a senior intern, right?
Yeah.
Basically, like I'm walking to my walk into my office and like she's there and she's always like there to like answer a lot of my questions and whatnot. And it's like easier when like someone's another intern, like you feel more comfortable like talking to them instead of like either the supervisor that you're talking to or like someone on your team, just because you don't know them yet and like you don't want to seem like you don't know a lot initially. So it was like really nice having someone there to like just like ask questions. So I feel like my like first day and first week were like pretty sheltered just because I had
you had a support system.
Yeah, I had a pretty good support system. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, and I think everyone goes through this. I'm sure Brian, you feel the same. It's like when you go in for an internship, honestly, you don't have that much to offer because all your training is from school, right? So there's a lot of like you get plagued by all these doubts, like, oh, I don't know enough, right? So when I first started, at every company really, it's this. I feel like I have pretty bad imposter syndrome. I think a lot of students feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a lot of pressure to impress people, like your superiors and people around you.
Yeah.
So like personally for me, because I didn't know, like I didn't have good background with the software at Apple, I put a lot of pressure on myself. But I came out of all that just really grateful for Apple's mentorship because they really like invested the time in me, right?
Yeah.
They trained me from the bottom, and yeah.
So I'd like to build on that a little bit. I want to hear, again, more some of these challenges that you guys have faced when starting work. Like, what did you find was difficult? So when we look at transitioning again students into the workforce, we're able to, not only as a company, but as an industry, being able to understand and being able to translate your skills better to make everyone succeed.
Yeah, again, like for me personally, like the transition was like super easy because I felt like school was actually like the hardest part about like everything. Like, because I feel like now, like personally, I feel like a lot of the work was similar to the stuff I did at school. So I could just like build on from that. So I feel like now that my Civil 3D skills have gotten better, like the work has become a little bit easier as well. And like now I feel like I also have like a lot more time outside of work because like during school, like you're putting in so many hours, like studying for exams, and you have so much homework to do, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the transition from school to work was a lot easier for me personally, just because of how BCIT prepared me.
That's really good. Yeah.
I think it's important for the student to network. Like that was probably one of the hardest things for me, especially when you're in such a STEM like oriented field. Sometimes students just kind of put their heads down, they study. It's important to have like that work-life balance and to be able to socialize. Like students should push themselves to go to all those networking events because that's where you get to, I guess, essentially make mistakes, right? Like you get to interact with all these professionals, right? You get to see what the vibe is like, how you should carry yourself, and that transitions really well into the workplace. Because as I mentioned earlier, as a co-op student, you don't have that much technical experience, right, that you bring to the table. It's more of how willing are you to push yourself to learn, like how proactive are you and how, I guess, like hungry you are to
the motivation
improve yourself.
factor.
Exactly. So that's probably the most important part, like having an open-minded, like.
Now, going back to school, did you guys have a lot of different networking events that you guys were able to attend, or were these networking events you had to almost seek out the opportunities on your own?
Yeah, so like going back to BCIT Industry Night, like that's like one of like the bigger events at BCIT that they have to offer, which is like a super cool event because there's like at least like 100 plus like companies that are just like there, right? So that's probably like the biggest one, and that's where like most of my friends, that's where actually like I found my job at Applin. So yeah, there's that, and there's like a couple like smaller ones for just like construction and stuff like that if you want to go into like CM or things like that. But yeah, I would say that's probably like the biggest one.
Yeah, UBC has some too. They have some larger ones. They send out emails and stuff, so students are well aware. They have a lot of smaller, almost pop-up like networking events where they'll set up in a big room. They have all the stands from all the different companies, and then you show up, you have your resume, yeah, exactly. They have a lot of those. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, obviously, there's different types of generations. Like there's Gen Z, there's Gen X. As obviously the years go on, what is a misconception you think there is out about your generation or about the younger generation that's coming into the working world that you guys think is false?
I think there might be a conception that our generation relies on technology a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a misconception. I think it's true.
I think it's
Yeah.
true, but I honestly don't think it's like necessarily like bad thing.
It's not. I mean, with
But
the
it depends
whole,
like how you use it. Obviously, like, there's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
there's like nuances to it.
with
but-
the whole AI thing. I feel like it's if you don't jump on it, then you're gonna fall behind, right? Because that's just everyone's moving on to that.
So your ability basically to be able to adjust on the fly then would be
Yeah.
something like a strength of yours.
I feel like just being more technically inclined is like probably
To want to make change because
Yeah.
engineering can be seen as an old
Yeah.
school
yeah.
field, right? Like again, a lot of the clients are a little bit older and that's
exactly.
just
Exactly.
they're more adapt to their way or they're more I want to say stiff in their ways. Like I've gone through it as well when I was younger too,
Yeah.
right? A lot of changes take time.
Yeah, no,
right?
for
Versus
sure.
now it's more so everything happens really rapidly on the fly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just something really cool. Have you guys heard about Notebook LM?
No.
I'm not too well versed in it, but I think it's like a new AI initiative by Google or something. I could be wrong. But basically, you can submit or like give them research papers and they will create a podcast for you, like two AIs speaking about the content that you give them. So it's like a way to learn. And it's kind of creepy, to be honest, because it sounds like people
I was
talking.
gonna say,
Your
it's
jaw's over, you're
Understand,
done.
I'm in so much
Yeah,
trouble
yeah.
already.
I was gonna.
They have,
Edit.
they
Yeah.
have the laughing, they have the ums, they have the interrupting each
Yeah.
other.
Oh, no.
Like, hey, why don't you go first? It's crazy.
He's nervous. He's like,
Yeah,
it's just like, there's my idea.
Yeah, it's over. It's over.
Now, again, backing into school. I think you guys have mentioned it before, but both of your programs, you had mentioned you think that there should be not a mandatory co-op, but you think that a work term in school should be
I think
part
it's
of the program, especially in engineering where the field is a little bit more different than being in school.
for sure. I feel like having that like experience is like super important because like there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have like known if I didn't go to like Applin or like maybe like any co-op, for example, right? That like school doesn't really teach you. It kind of like fills in like those like blank like things. Like I would say like school like does all of like the major things, but then like working at co-op like fills in like the blanks, like the ones in between. But I feel like it's like super important to take all of your co-op opportunities. I'm kind of sad that I didn't take it my first year because I feel like I wasted an opportunity. But no, I think it's like very important for every program to have that type of initiative.
Very cool.
I think so too. I mean, like I mentioned, UBC isn't as, I guess, like practical in their emphasis for curriculum, but they kind of make that up by having such a robust co-op program, right? So you are getting that theoretical, that type of learning from school, like the academia, but then you get to also like actually be in the workforce. So I can't imagine going through civil engineering without having co-opt.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that's
it's
crazy.
something
That's
that I
insane.
can't even imagine. Like right now I'm doing my capstone project right now, and frankly, I feel kind of bad for the students who didn't get that opportunity because I can't imagine how they would be handling
Because
that.
I was gonna say I don't think I actually ever wrote an email until I started to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like those little or how to answer a phone when it's not your
Yeah.
friend calling, when it's somebody else calling.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh
Like
my.
these little
Like
these little things that you have to do during
Yeah.
work day.
Exactly. Like I think 8 months of co-op is equivalent to maybe two years of school even. Like I would say that.
Sure.
He's throwing out the numbers like, hey, we'll go with that.
Sure.
Different programs.
Yeah.
So, can you envision yourself then both? I assume the answer is going to be yes, but can you both envision yourself in the engineering field for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, honestly, personally, like I would see myself in the engineering till like probably when I retire, just because like I just feel like it's like super rewarding, like the work that I'm doing right now, and it's just like I just started as well.
Yeah.
And then talking to like my supervisors as well, like they're constantly learning, and it's like very like good to like know that like even though they've been in the industry for like 10 years or something, that they're still able to like find some like joy in their work still, which is like something that like super motivating and like makes me happy that I picked like a pretty good career choice.
Yeah, it's really so fulfilling. It's so rewarding. I totally agree with Brian. Especially in the land development team, the projects are pretty close to home. Like, so for me, sometimes when I'm driving or I'm going to places, I'm like, oh, that's my project, or oh, I worked on that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me too, because like I know I wanted to work for the city like really early on, like before like like in my first year at BCIT, just because I want to give back to my community, like where I grew up. But it's like super cool that like I'm able to work for Appleton and still like work on these like Coquitlam projects and be like, oh, like I know exactly, like me and my friends used to hang out here. This is my friend's house. Like,
I've seen that curve before.
Yeah, I've seen that curve
Yeah.
before.
It's like, oh, that manhole, I designed the
Yeah.
benching for that, you know?
No, that's really cool. And that's the same thing I remember when I first started was looking at being able to drive by certain sites and be like, oh, okay, like that's
Yeah.
like my house is like right around the corner.
Yeah,
from it, so
exactly.
right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And like now that I'm in my 4th year, a lot of the courses or a lot of the school work is project based. Sometimes you have to look at other like president examples, right? And when I Google and I look into these things, like Appleton projects come up. It's crazy. And I actually hear about it from my friends. They're like, oh, we're actually gonna look at like Canby Gardens or something. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, my supervisor worked on that, you know?
Yeah.
Being able to just kind of see the connection
Exactly.
everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's cool.
So, if not for engineering, what is one career you both would be interested in else doing outside of the box?
Oh, you know mine already.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we want a ranch man.
Well, if it's not horse taming, I wanted to be a pilot when I was younger.
Okay. Why pilot?
I don't know. I thought it was super sick. I always loved like airplanes and stuff, like just like looking at them.
Okay.
Not even like flying them, just looking at them.
Looking at
But yeah, I just want to travel a lot. That was like
Okay,
kind of
very
like the main thing. But then I like saw how much schooling and like how expensive everything was, and I was like, probably not. So
Just planes or helicopters or?
Just planes, honestly, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think I grew up with a lot of animals at home, so I really wanted to be a vet growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. But then Canada, or I guess BC doesn't really offer like a vet program. You got to go to some other province, and the schooling's quite intensive. So I felt like working civil engineering, right? There's a bit of like a habitat component to it, like ecosystem. So, I mean, a little ironic, but
yeah.
That's a good connection that you can make, that you could still bring back an idea
Yeah.
of what you wanted to do and connect it to the work you're going to be doing.
yeah, exactly. And like I mentioned, I do think engineering is super fulfilling. And it's quite nice, like now, because my brother and I are pretty close. He's quite a few years older than me. But now that I'm starting to work as well, him and I, when we like hang out, we actually, like now I understand all
Yeah.
the technical stuff that he's talking about, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Being able to connect in a different way. almost.
exactly, it's really nice.
Favorite project from school?
Definitely have to say, so you have this thing called an industry project. So basically you email or you reach out to like somebody within industry, and they're gonna give you like one of the projects that they've worked on. So they'll sponsor you. And then so for like the entire semester, or 2 semesters actually, because the first semester is just making the proposal, and then the second semester is actually you fulfilling the proposal. So
Yeah.
you're actually like working on it. So I actually took on a pretty intensive building science project, which was
Okay.
a little outside of the scope because we still haven't even like talked about building science at all in class. So it was definitely like pretty brutal for the first couple like months. Can't even lie, because I had like no idea what was going on. Because even though it's like kind of related to civil engineering, it's it's more like specific to building science, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I did a whole project on building walls, like just like the assembly of them. And honestly, that was like, even though it wasn't like related to like what I'm doing now, like there was like a lot of like skills where like you don't know, like you need to like research a lot to like figure out like what you're doing, because like your sponsor only has so much time, right? Because it's their free time that they're giving up.
Yeah.
And especially they're like busy individuals, right? So you don't always want to be like hammering the phone on them. So it's a lot on you to like really like research and like dive deeper into like what you're doing. So I feel like even though it wasn't super civil related, I still like gained a lot of like research.
Like secondary skills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, the project ended up being pretty good. Got a pretty good grade on it, so.
I saw
Can't-
the report, it's impressive.
No complaints there.
Can't
He's like,
complain, can't
he's like,
complain.
smile, it's maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. What about yourself?
I guess I mentioned it already, but I think it's like my capstone. It's just the biggest deliverable, you know, like this is the last project. It runs on for the whole year, so you work on it for 2 semesters because they break it up into components. But that project is kind of like a culmination of everything you've learned, like all your work experience, all your knowledge from school.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it quite seriously because it's a little bit, I'm taking on an aspect of the project that's a little bit aligned with what I did at Appleton.
Okay.
So like, it almost feels like I'm trying to prove to myself that I can come up with a design I'm proud about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
That's super cool that you're able to kind of re-motivate yourself based off of the connection to here.
Yeah, 100%. And like I'm coming back to Applin after I graduate as well, so like I feel this need to like keep developing myself. Yeah, in the area that I'm going to work in the future too, specifically.
That's really cool that you want to just keep owning your skills basically before
Yeah.
you actually start like working.
Yeah,
forever.
totally. Like I want to come back and like be better, way better than
Yeah.
before.
Awesome. So now, do you guys have a role model that you guys have look up to, whether it's for work, whether it's a family member, athlete, public figure, celebrity? Is there somebody where you've seen them or that you can kind of connect to? It doesn't have to be a parent, doesn't have to be whatever. Is there somebody that you look up to that has motivated you to kind of push forward in, whether it's your career or your personal life?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, my older brother is definitely, like, he had a really big influence on me growing up. Because my parents immigrated here, there's quite a cultural gap between what their teachings were growing up and what I grew up learning in Vancouver, right? So in a way, my brother was almost like a secondary parental figure. Like he gave me a lot of guidance when my parents couldn't, right? Because my parents can't help me with school, things like that. So I really looked up to how he was able to, like as the older sibling, take on for the family. And I think I know we asked this question way earlier, but he's definitely one of the reasons why I'm in civil engineering.
Yeah.
Like going through high school and seeing the work that he did for the community was really cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. For me personally, I would say he was my industry sponsor because I knew him before he sponsored my project. But I would just say, specifically, he would bring me out to his like vacations and whatnot, and then he would have like this huge house with like all these boats and whatever, and I'm
crazy.
And I'm like, how did you do this? And he's like, oh, I'm a civil engineer, and I had so much respect for him. And I was like, wow, like you built all this just because you're a civil engineer. I was like, damn, that's insane. Like I really want to be you one day. Like So, but he worked really hard for everything he's done. So, kind of like trying to like model my life into that like a little bit.
Yeah, being able to see, I guess, the fruits of the labor.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard work,
All
right?
the hard work that he's done and put in, and able to reward himself for all that stuff, which is super sick.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and by who?
The best piece, I think it would be from Robert, actually, the branch manager. He told me to seek embarrassment. I think that's really important for juniors, like younger engineers, right? Because it's a bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's that we are the ones who are holding ourselves back the most. And I know that's really true for me. Like, for example, I'm in a dragon boating team, and the front position in the dragon boat is really important. And I would have never volunteered myself to go up there, but people in my team really pushed me. I ended up doing it. But it made me just like completely fall in love with dragon boat, and now I have this whole community. But that would have been something I never had if people hadn't pushed me.
Yeah.
So like most of the times I think, especially for people who are younger, like they're embarrassed, they don't want to make a fool of themselves because they don't know that much. But it's important to like be a little bit uncomfortable, like push yourself past your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's something I always think, like if you're not a little bit uncomfortable, that means you're not like
You're not pushing yourself hard enough.
exactly, because it's like a fine balance, right? When you're just past your comfort zone a little bit, you're learning, right? You shouldn't always be comfortable. So I think it's really important.
Honestly, like I'd probably quote Robert too, actually. So I actually just had like a lunch with him, and he was talking to me about this certain quote. I'm just gonna like paraphrase a little bit, but he was saying that if it costs peace of mind, like this certain action that you're gonna do, then it's like not worth it, because then you'll have regret afterwards. So that's like kind of like the big thing that I've been like working on recently, is having like no regrets, everything I do. So whenever I'm given like an opportunity here at Applin, because I feel like Applin is like, there's a lot of opportunities here, especially like this podcast, for example, right? But you kind of need to like go for it. I always like try to hop on it as quickly as possible, just because I don't want to have like that peace of mind being like, oh, like what if I didn't do it, you know, or yeah, what if I did it?
Yeah, always be comfortable to be uncomfortable. Try to take advantage of whatever's kind of been handed to you and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like that's one of the mindsets that I think juniors like us really need to have. It's like being open-minded enough to be able to take in constructive criticism and learn from those mistakes and not take it too harshly.
Yeah, and just be like, and have the responsibility to like be okay with making mistakes, and like telling people that like, oh, like I messed up on this one, but then also like having a solution. So not just only like bringing up the problem, but also like thinking of a solution as well. Is
Yeah.
probably-
Yeah, like taking accountability and being
Exactly.
able to like work through the problem, I think is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, guys. Well, that was perfect. It was great to hear a little bit about, again, like you said, work and school. I know it's not the easiest transition. Like I've done it too. I know it's definitely a little bit challenging going from one to the other. So it was super cool to hear what you guys had to say today. And that's all we have. I'd like to thank again Brian and Adelaide for joining us on today's episode and sharing your knowledge and experience. And then stay tuned for another episode. Have a great day.